Alexa, light red.
Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding right now.
Okay, well, Alexa's not working right now, but happy spooky season, everybody. I decided to put together this compilation of the body horror series. It's a trilogy, and I think 3 is the perfect number to put into one video. So you might have already seen these, but if you're new here and you haven't seen them yet, you're in for quite the treat. You got 3 body horror episodes in one video. Or if you have seen these before and you want to do a little binge marathon for Halloween to get into the spooky spirits, give me some of that ad revenue, you know? But more importantly, just relax, you know, grab a snack, grab a drink, and enjoy this extra long video. New videos will be coming soon, but for now, enjoy this marathon video. Happy Halloween! I think the body horror subgenre is a subgenre that not everybody will like. It's definitely made for a very specific audience. I get it, not everyone wants to see the human body be turned into a giant flesh blob. It's not everyone's thing. For those of you who don't know what body horror is, it's a subgenre of horror that focuses on the horror of, well, the body. More specifically, the deformation of the human body. The Thing, The Fly, Tusk, Possessor, more recently The Substance, coming later this year, Together, which I'm really looking forward to seeing in theaters. These are all examples of body horror targeted towards a mature audience. Now, is anyone in Gen Z out there watching this video? Hello? Anyone out there? Raise your hand. Yeah, I see you in the back. Yeah, my fellow Gen Z viewer, what's going on? Hey, did you know that you were probably introduced to body horror as a little kid? Yeah, there is a surprising amount of body horror shown in kids' media, enough for me to make a video about it. So, that being said, this is body horror in kids' media. Get your snacks ready, or don't. You might not want to. SpongeBob, for some reason, has a lot of gross out and body horror moments, especially during the middle seasons, like the Splinter and in that one episode, Fancy House, where Squidward rips his toenail off. Like, why the fuck is that in SpongeBob? But even in the earlier seasons, there were some bits of body horror thrown in there. I mean, let's take a look at I Was a Teenage Gary in season 1. Squidward accidentally injects himself and SpongeBob with snail plasma, and they turn into snails, which doesn't sound that scary. Except for the fact that you get to watch SpongeBob transform.
I take it back, Gary. Something is wrong with me.
Now, there was also a rumor going around about a deleted scene where you get to watch Squidward transform as well. Some people claim that they saw the scene air on TV before it was removed, but this is not true. It was debunked. There's no such thing as a deleted scene where Squidward transforms. It's just another case of the Mandela effect, but there are fan animations on YouTube about this quote-unquote deleted scene. Another memorable SpongeBob body horror moment happens in Season 4 episode SquidBob Tentacle Pants. SpongeBob and Squidward get morphed together by Sandy's faulty teleportation machine. When Squidward yanks the machine from Sandy in an effort to turn himself back to normal, he morphs with everybody in the room. And at the very end of the episode, we see in Squidward's psychiatrist office, him morphed with everybody in a big ball of disgusting flesh. Okay, jokes aside though, this is actually kind of fucking disgusting. Like, really. And whose eyeball is that? Anyway, yeah, I'd say this episode of SpongeBob, especially the ending of it, is tattooed on every Gen Z person's brain permanently. Does anyone here like cats? Does anyone here like them enough to transform into a big ball of them? Ah, yes, Steven Universe. I never really got into the show that much. I remember watching, like, the first season, maybe, and then I stopped. But recently I've been getting TikTok clips, and I think I missed out, honestly. Maybe I should give it a watch at some point. But I know one thing. Steven Universe is no stranger to horror. I remember that episode where Steven almost fucking dies because his gem is making him age faster, and that episode where Frybo gets possessed. Season 1 was horrifying, Lord have mercy. But there's one episode that always stuck with me, and I'm pretty sure with everyone else who watched Season 1, you don't even have to be a fan to know about this. Cat fingers. He turns his fingers into cats. So Steven's trying to figure out his shape-shifting abilities, and by doing so, turns his fingers into cats, and any body part he touches into cats as well. And by the end of the episode, Steven is drowning in cats that are growing out of his own body. What really puts the cherry on top for this horrific scene is the music that they use. It's like a sad, eerie piano. They figure out that water makes the cats go away, so Steven crawls through the car wash, and he's just turning into this monster of cats. And at the very end of the episode, Steven is a-okay after getting sprayed with a bunch of water. Yeah, I understand why he needs therapy. I think Greg could use some therapy too, actually. Maybe they could do like a father-son therapy session. In Season 5 of The Amazing World of Gumball, there's an episode called The Nuisance. The mayor, who looks oddly a lot like Donald Trump, wants the Wattersons deported, out of Elmore. After finding out that Elmore's crime rate is mainly because of the Wattersons, the Wattersons basically come to the conclusion that if they want to stay in Elmore, they need to look like the perfect model family. So they do a bunch of good deeds, and then they quite literally become a stereotypical perfect model family. Turns out the mayor wanted to get rid of the Wattersons so that he could make Elmore appeal to rich buyers, so then the Wattersons destroy the city, and Elmore's no longer for sale for rich people. In another Season 5 episode, The Best, there's another little moment of body horror. Carmen is a know-it-all, and Gumball doesn't like that, so he tries to one-up her at everything, essentially. Gumball and Carmen are in the chemistry lab doing science experiments, and Gumball, trying to one-up Carmen, doesn't follow the rules, and this happens.
Thank you, giant melted poodle meatball thing. You're right, my disgusting friend.
Carmen turns into a whatever the fuck that thing is, like a weird core looking thing, and it looks straight out of a nightmare. Which it technically is, I guess, because this part's not real. It's in Gumball's head after inhaling the toxic fumes. Gravity Falls, another series that's no stranger to horror. And what better time to have weird horror than during Weirdmageddon? Off track here for a second, can we talk about how cool the intro to Weirdmageddon is? Like, when you see it for the first time, it genuinely throws you off guard a little bit, because you're expecting the normal intro, and then boom, oh shit. It's going down. This is the moment. Now, there's a part in Weirdmageddon Part 1 that everybody mentions when talking about scary stuff in Gravity Falls, and it just so happens to be body horror related. Preston Northwest comes up and he's like, yo, Bill Cipher, I'm rich. We welcome you here. Let me be one of your horsemen of the apocalypse. That's what he says, pretty much. And Bill Cipher's not impressed, obviously. I mean, what's a demon gonna do with money? So, in response to Preston's offer, he shuffles the functions of every hole in his face. Jesus Christ. Well, I guess this goes to show that some kids' shows aren't just made for kids. And sometimes you just gotta have a little bit of face shuffling in your show. I do appreciate that Disney actually let this get past the censors. I don't know how, but it's great. Now, gay people, that's where the line is drawn.
Invader Zim, one of the most bizarre and hilarious animated children's shows. Now, I loved Invader Zim growing up, but there's one episode that has always kinda stuck out to me. That episode is Dark Harvest, and I'm sure many other fans of the show will know what I'm talking about. Zim is an alien that's trying to blend in with humans to collect data for a potential alien invasion. This episode takes place when Zim is blending in at school, and the antagonist of the series, Dib, the only one that knows he's an alien, plots to send him to the nurse in an attempt to get him found out for being otherworldly, for not having basic normal human anatomy, specifically human organs. Zim decides in order to be perceived as more human, he must obtain human organs. Zim then goes on a rampage throughout the school, replacing children's organs with various objects, believing that the more human organs he collects, the more human he'll be perceived. While this premise alone is already a little bit unnerving, the real kicker is seeing the x-rays from the students, with their bodies having these weirdly placed objects intertwined with their organs, like hall passes and school supplies. Or the x-ray of Zim's body, which is atrocious, Zim's body being filled to the brim with intestines. As Zim collects more and more of his classmates' organs, his body begins to inflate. They even begin to overflow and spill out of his mouth. Ew! The episode ends with him confronting his nemesis Dib, stealing his organs and then replacing them with a children's toy that makes a mooing cow sound. Zim does pass the nurse's check. The nurse proclaims that he's in perfect health, and has such plentiful organs. This episode was definitely memorable as a kid for its very bizarre concept, not even to mention its weird visuals. There was definitely a reason it stuck with me.
Would you believe me if I told you in the very first episode of the Magic School Bus, there's an instance of body horror? The little children get launched into space with a school bus, as typical children do, and they visit different planets, as children usually do. And on Pluto, Janet, who is Arnold's cousin, that looks strikingly like a twin, there might be some family drama going on. Janet is being stubborn. She wants proof that she was in space and on all these different planets. Well, Pluto's not considered a planet, but whatever. She has the bus stuffed with proof and it all falls out and she doesn't want to leave until she gets her proof. So she's like,
No, I don't want to leave.
and Arnold's like, listen, this is what's gonna happen to you if you don't leave, you little bitch. This is the moment that gave us all nightmares. Arnold takes his helmet off, and his head turns into an ice block. Arnold killed himself to make a point. That's a real man right there. Obviously, Arnold doesn't actually die. He just ends up with a cold, because that makes sense. But who am I to judge the logic of the Magic School Bus? There are children in space. But I remember being shown this episode in school, and this scene was embedded into my brain. And I think it makes a perfect entry for body horror in kids' media. Everybody and their Grandpa Joe knows about Willy Wonka and his magical chocolate factory. Lickable walls, chocolate rivers and waterfalls, Oompa Loompas, the unknown— Wait a minute. Everybody wishes that Willy Wonka's chocolate factory was a real thing. Also, hot take, I like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie better with Johnny Depp. I know, hate me all you want, but at the end of the day, it's just a better movie, I'm sorry. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was actually my first introduction to Willy Wonka as a little kid, and boy, let me tell you, I was left fearing for my life. This is a core memory for me. I remember watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that we rented from the library. It was just my mom and I at home watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I was having a good old time up until the blueberry part came up. The scene where Violet turns into a giant blueberry. Yeah, this scene terrified me as a child, and I couldn't finish the movie. Just the sheer size that she becomes, I was worried that she was gonna pop, so I had to have my mom pause the movie, and I couldn't finish watching it. But now, I enjoy the movie quite a bit, actually, and I like the music. It has bangers. Chewing, chewing all day long. Chewing, chewing. Like, come on, man. That movie slaps, okay? And again, I like it more than the original Willy Wonka. But yeah, the blueberry scene terrified me as a kid. I could not get past it, but now it's a banger. The music slaps. Everything about this movie is golden. Was anyone else scared by this as a kid, or was it just me? Like, this became a legitimate phobia for a certain period of my life. I feel like the only way to properly end this video is if I end it by talking about Bad Case of Stripes. I believe this book truly is everybody's first introduction to body horror. We've all been there, we all have shared this same experience, I'm sure, sitting in elementary school on the rainbow carpet that has shit stains on it, and the teacher is reading this book to us, and she turns the book to show us the illustrations, and we are just blessed by pure body horror. If you've gone your entire life without encountering this book somehow, basically, the book is about this girl who won't eat her lima beans. She refuses to eat her lima beans, so the next day, she turns into a pride flag. And with each page flip of this book, she just gets progressively more and more deformed, up until the point where she actually becomes a room in the house. And take a wild guess on what the fix for this is. Lima beans. Moral of the story is, if you don't eat your vegetables, if you don't stay healthy, you're gonna turn into a disgusting creature. Okay, children? Let this be a lesson to you all. I don't know why they picked lima beans out of all vegetables to eat. You could have picked something delicious like, I don't know, cooked carrots are pretty good. Could have gone with cooked carrots. Potatoes. You can do a bunch of things with potatoes. Mashed potatoes, baked potatoes. Hell, chop up some potatoes, throw them in the air fryer. Boom. The red spot. I'm assuming you probably know what— Lord have mercy. I'm assuming you probably know what scary stories to tell in the dark is if you've been to public school, because they had it in the school library. Although, let's be honest, I don't think a lot of us actually really read the books. We kind of just got the books to look at the pictures. That was like the whole appeal to these books, the horrifying illustrations, and it's what everyone remembers the most. Also, the movie adaptation is pretty damn good. They hit the nail right on the head with the designs and practical effects. It's so damn cool seeing how accurate they brought these illustrations to life for the movie, and watching it takes you back to elementary school when you were when you were looking at the illustrations in these books in the school library. Now, just because I didn't read most of the stories doesn't mean I didn't read any of them. There is one I remember reading very vividly. The red spot. Oh, yep, that one on screen right there. Yep, no warning at all. Arachnophobes, how you doing? I'm gonna put the scene from the movie on the screen while I talk about the story. So basically, while this girl is sleeping, she gets bit by a spider on her cheek, and she wakes up and notices there's a red spot. And then she's like, ew, this thing's fucking ugly on my face. And the mom's like, oh, it's okay, it's probably just a spider bite. It'll go away, just don't scratch it. Well, it doesn't go away. As a matter of fact, in a few days, the boil is so massive that the mom's like, alright, maybe we should have the doctor look at it, but the doctor couldn't see Ruth until the next day. That night, Ruth decides to take a nice hot bath, and then the boil bursts, and a bunch of tiny spiders crawl out of the red spot on her cheek. Not only did she have a spider bite, but the spider laid eggs in her cheek, making it the perfect body horror in kids media. Ah, he said the thing. Let's go. Henry Danger was a weird ass show. Because it was run by Dan Schneider, so who's surprised? I liked Henry Danger, though. It was one of my go-to Nickelodeon sitcoms. That being said, there were definitely a lot of what the f*** moments. One of these WTF moments is related to body horror, and I completely forgot it happened in the show. And thanks to this comment on the first body horror video, hold on, I gotta find the screenshot, give me a second. Okay, yeah, here it is. Thanks to commenter Important Life for reminding me of this moment in the show. Hello. They say, another one that kind of scared me when it first came out was Henry Danger Season 4, Episode 14, when the teleporter messed up and transformed them into a disgusting thing. Yes, now I remember. I must revisit this moment in the show for myself. And also, I need a clip for the YouTube video, obviously. So I find a pirated episode on Dailymotion. In case you were wondering, yes, it is 360p. Can you tell? When Ray runs into an ex-girlfriend, he tries to impress her by pretending that Henry, Charlotte, and Jasper are his children. I'm not gonna do a rundown of the entire episode, because I don't care. And quite frankly, I don't think you do either. That's not what you're here for. We're here for the body horror. That comes at the end of this episode. All you need to know is that there's a teleportation device involved, but it cannot teleport 2 people at a time. And these people ignore that rule. So when they try to use the machine to teleport themselves, they get turned into a blob creature thing. Kind of like at the end of that one SpongeBob episode. By far the funniest part of this moment right here is when they don't know what to do with the human blob. So they just drop it off at a synagogue. The grossest part about it, though, is the sounds and shit that they make. Like, their fused bodies just sound squishy and slimy and like, ugh, it's just gross.
Do you know how to separate them? You know, turn them back into 2 normal people? Do I? No.
And they're making all these distorted faces and stuff like that. It kind of looks like a David Firth animation. It's definitely a moment in the show. That's for sure. And I completely forgot about it, so thank you, Important Life, for reminding me of this atrocity. All God's creatures, fresh off the grill, come on down to Mr. Meaty, where the friends meet to eat meat. And by meat, I'm talking human fingers. I did not grow up watching Mr. Meaty. As a matter of fact, I just recently learned about it within the past year or two. And everything I've seen about it looks absolutely disgusting, including the puppet designs. It looks like something that would be on Adult Swim. But no, this was on Nickelodeon. Also, fun fact, one of the creators of the show also created Nanoland. Now, as I just mentioned the consumption of human hands, what I was specifically referring to is the Mr. Meaty short, The Crispy Hand. Josh is flirting it up with the goth girl, my man has taste, and she orders a burger, but make it extra bloody. Josh is trying to score something, so he offers her a tour of the Mr. Meaty restaurant. As they're touring the establishment, she slips on some lard that's all over the floor, and her hand goes in the deep fryer. Her reaction? Not much. She does say
That is painful.
when she pulls her hand out of the deep fryer, it's all black and burnt, and in an attempt to convince her that this is a regular, normal, everyday Mr. Meaty occurrence, Parker sticks his hand in the deep fryer on purpose. He takes his hand out of the deep fryer, it's burnt to a crisp, and then he f***ing takes a bite out of his hand. But it worked on her, and she believes that this is just a normal thing that happens, and she takes a bite out of her own hand as well. That's the end of the short. In another infamous episode, Schnozola, Josh overhears a girl with a zit talking about how if somebody made the perfect zit cream, they would become rich and famous. So with hopes of becoming rich and famous, Josh takes this idea and makes his own zit cream. He tries it on Ashley's face, and it does get rid of the zit, but it also gets rid of her nose. They try fixing her nose and putting it back on her face, and then, and I quote from the Mr. Meaty wiki, Parker accidentally knocks it onto the grill, and then into the deep fryer, and then into a container of bacon bits. The two accidentally knock it onto the floor, where it's stolen and eaten by the restaurant's occupant rat. End quote. So, now that they don't have a nose to put back on her face anymore, the next option is meat. So then they smack a sausage on her face. No, they do not. That does not sound okay. They attach the sausage onto her face like it's her nose. Saved it. She's upset about it at first, but then Josh and Parker tell her that beauty is on the inside, and then meat nose becomes the next big trend. So everyone is just walking around wearing rotting meat on their faces. And I can't possibly move on from Mr. Meaty without at least mentioning Moochmaster P, aka the Tapeworm episode. It's the most infamous episode of the show, without a doubt, and I'm not sure if it completely counts as body horror, but it at least deserves a mention. Whenever Parker tries to eat food, it disappears in front of his very eyes. So in order to figure out what's going on, Josh records Parker trying to eat. The food disappears, and when they slow the footage down, they see that Parker has a tapeworm living inside of him who reaches out extremely fast and grabs the food before Parker can eat it. And they come to the realization that Parker got the tapeworm by eating raw meat. Then Josh fishes the tapeworm out of Parker, and it comes flying out of his mouth. They get the tapeworm in a cage, and then this Australian cowboy guy comes in, probably Steve Irwin, I don't know. And he's like, oh, I dealt with these guys before, I could take them off your hands. And then he swallows the tapeworm.
Here we go. Come on in.
That's Mr. Meaty. Cat Dog. Nicktoons have no mercy. In the Cat Dog episode, Teeth for Two, Cat has really bad looking teeth. But that doesn't make sense, because Cat actually takes pretty good care of his teeth, and Dog doesn't. So how are Dog's teeth perfect and Cat's teeth rotting inside of his mouth? Well, this is because their anatomy works vice versa. Whatever Dog does to his teeth, Cat gets the results, and it's the other way around. So because Dog hasn't been taking care of his own teeth, Cat has to suffer the consequences. And because of this, Cat tries to get Dog to take better care of his teeth, but he just won't do it. Later that night, Cat is in so much pain, he has to do something to get Dog to clean his damn teeth. So the obvious solution would be to turn himself inside out and crawl up through Dog's mouth so he can brush his teeth for him. And here we see what is basically gore of somebody's comfort character. Okay, legitimate question here. Would this classify as being gore? Yes or no? No blood, but you are seeing the flesh of a living thing. And does that count as gore in some ways? I don't know. Either way, I'm surprised that they allowed that. Actually, no, I'm not surprised at all. This is old Nicktoons we're talking about. This stuff happened like all the time. After Dog swallows Cat back to his normal form, they get in a little bit of a feud and start trying to ruin each other's teeth. And by the end of the episode, both Cat and Dog's teeth are rotting and falling out every time they speak. Some of their teeth are hanging out of their mouth by a thread. Oh my god, dude. They apologize, they go to the dentist, and they get new teeth. And that episode is that. If you can't handle teeth stuff, probably stay away from this episode.
Name a character who had it worse than Ellie. My answer to that question is Timothy from the 2012 adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You could also call him the Pulverizer or Mutagen Man. His first appearance was in the episode The Pulverizer. Now Timothy started as just a fanboy to the Turtles. His whole personality is that he idolizes the Turtles quite a bit, but because of his stupidity, the Turtles end up saving him a couple times. To the Turtles, he's pretty much considered a general nuisance and has messed with their missions. He ends up returning in the episode The Pulverizer returns. It's discovered that Timothy was hired by the Foot Clan and now works as a spy for the Turtles. He was able to inform them that Shredder was going to start an army using the mutagen. Later on in the episode, Timothy volunteers to be experimented on in hopes of helping the Turtles out. The Turtles try to stop him but are interfered by Shredder's goons. Timothy pours the mutagen on him but realizes the dangers once he feels a burning sensation. Instead of being a kick-ass mutant like the Turtles, he ends up becoming a 6-foot living blob of mutagen and exposed exposed organs. He loses control of himself and goes on a rampage, yet the turtles are able to calm them down, only for Timothy to look at a reflection of himself and lose control again. Donnie comes up with the plan to trap him in a cube and freeze him. For the remainder of the series, Donnie promises himself to find a cure and restore Timothy to his human self. He did come back in the episode Mutagen Man Unleashed, where he gets new powers and tries to kidnap April, but he ends up frozen again by the end of the episode. He's made multiple cameos in the show, appearing in the background of Donnie's lab. In the episode Carmageddon, which takes place in an alternate future, we see Mutagen Man's tank at the bottom of a lake. What could this mean? Did Mutagen Man die and live the rest of his life as a mutated mess? Or did Donnie find a cure and leave his tank behind? Oh, fun fact, Timothy is voiced by Roger Craig Smith. Thanks to Jeejay.
Some of you mentioned Adventure Time in the comments, specifically Princess Monster Wife. Adventure Time is no stranger to horror and disturbing episodes. The deer episode, that one episode where Princess Bubblegum gets possessed by the Lich. Speaking of the Lich, little body horror honorable mention, this scene where the Lich starts growing flesh on his body after touching Guardian blood. As freaky as all that is, I want to talk about Princess Monster Wife, an exclusively body horror episode. Ice King goes around taking body parts from a bunch of different princesses. All these princesses are gathered around, missing body parts. When Princess Bubblegum turns around, she looks like this. Jake is so real for that. Finn and Jake go to Ice King to, see if something's up, because obviously he would probably be behind something like this. Lo and behold, yes he did, he made a Princess Monster Wife out of all the body parts. We see this Frankenstein-like creature made up of all these different lady body parts. Princess Monster Wife, by the end of the episode, ends up breaking herself down, and the body parts go back to their respectful owners. And although Ice King is upset about Princess Monster Wife leaving, he's even more upset about the fact that she gave away all of his stuff.
Gave away all my stuff!
This episode isn't really creepy. If anything, it's more sad for Ice King, but it is a form of body horror technically. So it deserves a spot on the list for more body horror in kids media. Woo! He said the thing again! Woo! Yeah, baby! Anything can happen in regular show, including body horror. Said it again! Woo! Halloween-themed episodes of shows were always my favorite. And I remember the promos for the Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon Halloween specials were always so hype. Like, they always tried making them look like the scariest shit ever.
Brand new spooky episodes are coming for you every Monday in October.
Smells like the undead.
Nothing can prepare you.
Stop freaking out!
No one can save you.
I want to throw in your face!
And nobody can hear you.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
And regular show had a little Halloween miniseries called Terror Tales of the Park. Episode 1 of this miniseries includes the infamous creepy doll story, Death Metal Crash Pit, and of course, In the House. In this story, Rigby f***s with a wizard and gets turned into a house. Later on, the wizard wants to get revenge on everybody, and this is where shit goes down. They're all in the house, ready to fight back and defend themselves, and Muscle Man has a gun, which would not be allowed today. Muscle Man starts shooting around, gets dragged into the woods, and then you hear gunshots off in the distance. But Muscle Man's okay, kinda. He's at the door, but when he opens it, he's been flayed.
I told you I was ripped.
Is that Gore of My Comfort character? I already made that joke earlier. Now Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network have a de-skinning moment on this list. I mean, if they're allowed to show guns, why not show off a little bit of muscle and flesh? This easily takes the cake for the most disturbing part of this whole episode. The other characters also die in weird ways, but it's nowhere near as gruesome as this. And because it has to do with the body, it could classify as body horror.
Courage the Cowardly Dog scared the hell out of me as a kid, but for some reason, I can never pull my eyes away from the screen when it was on. Specifically, an episode called The Clutching Foot. Oh, this episode starts off like any other. Eustace wakes up with an itchy foot. It's purple with like green little pimples all over it. Courage and Muriel try a bunch of different odd methods to try and cure the itchiness, but the foot continues to grow. Talking about feet is gross. Jeejay, why'd you make me do the foot episode?
It was all a part of my evil plan, Gage. Now, get back to talking about the foot!
After the foot keeps growing, Eustace refuses to go to the doctor. And then we get the worst scene by far. Eustace is then consumed by his own foot. It fully engulfs his body, and then the foot turns into this weird purple talking sentient creature, where each of the toes has its own face. It's pretty gross, not gonna lie. The foot then reveals its master plan. It's not only a giant talking foot, it's a gangster giant talking foot. It wants to pull off a bank heist and is forcing Courage to kind of play along. After that plan fails, they try again to hijack a train. And again, it also fails. Never said they were a good foot gangster. While the foot tries to plan another heist, Courage goes up to the family computer and tries to figure out a cure. He does this by ripping off one of the gross green pimples and putting it into the computer as a sample. The computer tells him the only cure to help his owners is dog spit. So he begins to lick the foot. Courage then goes ham, licking all over this foot in a scene that is way too long, I think, and Eustace slowly emerges back out from the foot as his foot slowly starts to shrink back down. At the end of the episode, we get a reveal that Courage's tongue has now been infected by the same kind of fungus that Eustace had. And that's it. Honestly, it's not the worst that I've seen, but if you're not a fan of feet like me, no good. Nasty. Hopefully the next one is not as feet related.
Time to revisit a couple segments, because some of you guys mentioned I missed a few things. These are kind of just like honorable mentions. I don't want to go too deep into talking about them, but they should at least be mentioned. Cass Virgil says, we really ain't going to talk about the Force Fusions clustered gem monsters from Steven Universe in a body horror video, for real? I did mention I never really paid attention to Steven Universe past, like, season 1 and 2. I talked about the Cat Fingers episode in the first video, and some people in the comments brought up the episode Keeping It Together. And yeah, definitely could qualify for body horror. Thank you to everyone who recommended this to me. When you said Gumball, I was like, oh my god, is he gonna talk about what I think he's gonna talk about? But actually, no. I'm not sure which episode this is, but Alan convinces Gumball and Darwin to say yes to everything, and they end up saying yes to a scientist who injects them with expired medicine, and they just turn into these grotesque creatures. Edit. In the episode called The Saint, Gumball's tongue swells up and wraps around his head and gets covered in boils. Darwin's entire body is covered in mushrooms and he turns into a tree. There's another scene in Gumball where he changes his DNA and ends up being a pile of flesh. This is from the episode The Apprentice. You forgot the parasite from Gumball. I may have forgotten to talk about it, but I certainly did not forget about it. Gumball teleporting where he morphs into different living things. This is from the episode The Box. Looking back, Gumball had a lot of body horror moments. I used to own a bunch of Goosebumps DVDs and used to watch them on road trips on my DVD player. Half the time I couldn't even see what was happening on screen because the lighting in the Goosebumps episodes were so dark and the sun would glare off the screen while I'm in the car. It was too dark to see any goddamn thing happening. And I never watched the 2023 Goosebumps TV series, but apparently that show also had really dark lighting. So I guess the people behind both the original and new Goosebumps series don't know what lights are. I loved Goosebumps as a kid and I tried collecting as many episodes as I could. Also, the box art appealed to me. Now, when it comes to body horror, there's a few moments I can think of. In the episode My Hairiest Adventure, Lloyd and his bandmates put on expired tanning lotion. Lloyd almost instantly starts having a bad reaction to the lotion. Just kidding, it was a little prank on his friends. He's okay. Just kidding again, he's not actually okay. He passes out seconds after doing that joke. Lloyd is laying in his bed after passing out and gets a shot from Dr. Merkins for his allergies. All is good for Lloyd after this. He's doing better until he realizes he's growing absurd amounts of hair. He figures it must have been the tanning lotion, and he tries hiding it as best as he can from his parents. But they do eventually find out about all the hair he's growing, and they call Dr. Merkins to come give him another shot, saying it's probably just nerves. Because yeah, nerves notoriously make people grow hair like a werewolf. The next day after the injection, he's hairless, and he goes to find his friend Lily, only to find out that she turned into a dog, along with all of his other bandmates. Lloyd runs home with hair growing all over his body again, and then it cuts to him as a dog. Now, for the big twist that I literally just now found out about, Dr. Merkins was doing an experiment to turn dogs into humans. Meaning Lloyd and his friends were originally dogs to begin with, but Dr. Merkins was injecting them with serum to turn them into humans as an experiment. But obviously, the serum didn't quite work out like Dr. Merkins wanted, and instead of staying human, the children turned back into dogs. So the expired instant tanning lotion had nothing to do with any of this. In Cry of the Cat Cat Part 1 and 2, teen actress Allison accidentally runs over a cat with her bike. After this, she basically starts getting tormented by the cat as a zombie whose name is Rip. Every time she's scratched by the cat, a bit of her life goes into him and a bit of his life goes into her. So she starts developing more cat-like traits every time she's scratched. So with hopes of getting help, she goes to the previous owner of the cat, who is a scientist. As she steps out of the shadows, we see she's a deformed mess of half human, half cat. She explains she was working on a cure for a virus and was testing it on cats since their immune systems are similar to humans. Rip turned pretty much into an immortal monster from the experiments and scratched the scientist so many times that she herself also started turning into a cat. The scientist, wanting to keep Rip alive, pretty much gave her entire life to him. And since she's all used up with cat scratches, she wants to sacrifice Allison and her friend Ryan. Allison and Ryan manage to escape after filling a fake mouse with chemicals, killing the zombie cat. But before Rip finally dies, he manages to scratch Ryan's leg. It's then revealed that most of the episode we just watched was actually a part of a movie that Allison and Ryan were in. At the end of the episode, Allison complains about the movie not having a twist ending, where we then see Ryan eating a mouse. It was actually real. Ooh, I think. My Hairiest Adventure and Cry of the Cat were never really my favorite Goosebumps episodes, but they had memorable body horror moments that I wanted to include here.
Honestly, there are way too many body horror adjacent scenes in Flapjack. It was hard to pick just one. If you were a fan of the show when you were younger, you might be having flashbacks to the eyeless cat. Not to mention the copious amount of SpongeBob-style close-up, zoom-in, freeze frames. Some of the ones from Flapjack are actually... I don't know what to say. But one scene that I still remember to this day is the Sky Maid in an episode called Gone Wishing. I'm sure you can probably find some more horrifying things in Flapjack, but this episode in particular stuck with me because it's very odd. Because, you know, it is quite gruesome, and it's about death, or the ascension into the afterlife. I guess Jeejay didn't pay me enough to explain this to you. He actually didn't pay me at all. This episode opens up with Captain Knuckles being chased by mermaid guards. Big, burly, buff, little dudes. We see him make it safely to the dock with a golden heart full of little candy. And honestly, some of these mermaid guard dudes are body horror in themselves. But then a giant mermaid woman appears out of the ocean and says an eerie, fun little riddle about what's to come.
The queen of ocean depths don't die, no longer mare, but maid of sky.
Captain Knuckles then reveals that he has stolen the mermaid's heart, and the mermaid just kind of sits there in the ocean and stares at them for the entire episode without blinking. But in the mermaid's heart, there's a bunch of candy that grants wishes. So Flapjack and Captain Knuckles start chowing down, and they make a bunch of random, unimportant wishes, including one where Flapjack wishes that their bodies would combine into one.
Finally, we are one.
To go to Candied Island!
Oh, yeah.
All of these wishes are either funny or really bizarre. Anyways, after making all these crazy wishes, Flapjack begins to notice that the mermaid is deteriorating. Her face is beginning to slowly sag, and her eyes are getting grayed over. With every wish that they make, the more her body starts to distort. It is pretty gnarly watching her face start to melt off. Her hair falls out, and her eyes shrivel up into almost nothing. Flapjack finally has the realization if they don't stop making wishes, they will kill the mermaid. But in normal Flapjack hijinks, they end up using all the wishes, leaving the mermaid's heart empty. And unlike any other kid show where there would be some kind of lesson or happy moral, we hear the mermaid scream in pain. It begins to rain and thunder, and her body starts to distort even more as she's getting dragged and splashed around in the ocean waves, before sinking to the bottom of the ocean and appearing once again in the sky. She begins screaming as her saggy body gets ripped apart, and she's transformed into a Sky Maid. Beautiful, yay! Essentially, an angel. The Sky Maid then explains that they are born when greedy little adventurers like themselves steal a mermaid's heart and use up all the wishes. Essentially, killing a mermaid. There might be worse out there in Flapjack, but this one always stuck with me because I was like, man, they really did just kill that mermaid. But anyways, thanks, Jeejay. Glad I didn't have to talk about feet this time.
I am not much of a Disney person, and I might get flamed for saying this. I have not seen the original Pinocchio, but quite a few people mentioned it being their first exposure to body horror, so I wanted to talk about it. Now, even if you're like me and haven't seen the movie, you still might be familiar with a certain horrifying scene where Pinocchio and Lampwick turn into donkeys. For context, they're at an amusement park on a cursed island called Pleasure Island. It's led by a villain who goes by the name of the Coachman and is sort of designed as like a trap for disobedient boys to get turned into donkeys. Boys who misbehave are allowed to do pretty much whatever they want on this island and have a bunch of fun, at the expense of a donkey transformation. So when Pinocchio and Lampwick partake in activities that are generally considered jackass behavior, they transform into literal jackasses. And we get a rather unnerving scene of the two boys transforming. More specifically, Lampwick's transformation. And the audio we hear as the transformation happens of human screaming turning into donkey screaming makes it all the more unsettling. And I'm sure this scene taught quite a few children not to act like a jackass, or else you just might turn into one. I feel like Hugo's one of those things that everyone had to either read or watch in school, or both, and then compare and contrast the two for an assignment. To be completely honest with you, I kinda forgot this existed until somebody mentioned it in my comments. This body horror moment takes place in a dream sequence. Hugo has a dream where he accidentally causes a train to derail. He wakes up in a panic to realize that none of it was real. Like most people do after waking up from a nightmare, he checks his surroundings to ensure that he's actually awake. However, he starts hearing a ticking sound that sounds like it's just a little too close to him. Hugo opens up his shirt and the camera pans down to his chest, but something's not right. Instead of seeing a normal chest, we're met with a cavity filled with moving cogs. Body part by body part, Hugo starts quickly transforming into an automaton. The flesh and bones on his legs are replaced with metal framing. His hands and arms turn to metal, and eventually his full head turns to metal, completing the automaton transformation. One of the scariest aspects of body horror is when it becomes unstoppable. When you're no longer in control of your body and you turn into something that you're not supposed to be. And while there are a few on this list with that specific type of body horror, this one is easily one of the more unsettling ones. But thankfully, it was all just a dream.
Spy Kids, spiritually, is a dirty crack house movie. And you know it to be true. The only reason it's not considered that is because A, it was popular, and B, because they had real smoke show actors in it, like Antonio Banderas or that flamboyant, cute little twink, Alan Cumming, who I mostly remember playing Nightcrawler in the X-Men movies, or Loki in Son of the Mask, which is another horrifying movie in its own right. We all know Spy Kids. The plot is really simple. You have rich, eccentric megalomaniac who is trying to rule the world, and you have the parent characters who are international spies, and then you have the kids who have to come help save the day. Basically James Bond, but for kids, and with a couple tabs of acid thrown in. Picture this, right? You're me, you're a wee little lad, sitting in the back seat of your parents' car on the way to school, eating Fruit Loops out of a little Ziploc bag, and back there in the seat with you is a crappy little DVD player that just so happens to be playing Spy Kids, and you're laughing, coking and joking, having a good time, and all of a sudden, the most horrific, twisted amalgamations of color and flesh start staring back at you through the screen. And you're left wondering, what kind of cruel, sick god has tortured these beings so to make them this way? You're not old enough to process these thoughts and emotions. The Fooglies are peak body horror. These creatures look like they walked off the set of Beetlejuice. That's basically what you're looking at, but it's meant for kids. Like, they're supposed to be cute or funny looking, but they're not. They're just horrific. Even the parent, the dad, Antonio Banderas in the movie, thinks they look horrifying. They're like, what the hell is this? Come to find out your worst fears are validated, because the Fooglies are the captured spy friends of the parents that have been captured by Floop, who have been twisted and deformed into these weird creatures so he can put them on his children's television show as like basically like a humiliation ritual. Now that I'm older, I think another underrated like creep factor of the Fooglies is that they speak in reverse. So like in the kids show, Floop will be like, look how cute my Fooglies are, and they'll be like, meow 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 meow, like they'll talk backwards. But if you record it and then play it in reverse, it's actually their pleas for help.
It's like, help. Me trapped. Help. Somebody me.
We're trapped. Floop is a madman. Help us. Save us. Floop is a madman. Help us. Save us.
Floop's a madman. Help us. And for some reason, it reminds me of the zombies in Half-Life, like the crab head guys. Their screams of agony and pleas for help. That's basically the Fooglies. I know this quote was in Spy Kids 2, not the first one, but I think Steve Buscemi says it best. Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created? Wise words from Mr. Pink. I couldn't have put it better myself. Alright, play something else.
Just give them a second, Garrett. Be patient, Garrett! They're gonna wake up any moment. Hey, bud. Hey, you awake? Garrett, I told you this stuff works. You never believe me. Hey, listen, have you considered subscribing and turning on notifications yet? I highly recommend doing so. Also, leave a like and comment. And YouTube has a new feature called Hype. I guess you have up until 7 days after a video is uploaded to hype the video. If you have the feature, you should definitely use it. Also, check out my link tree. It's in the description of this video. Has all my social media links you need. Ah, yeah, right. Channel memberships. Yeah, help support the channel by doing that. That's about it. Alright. You're gonna go back to sleep now. And you're gonna wake up back at home, okay? This never happened.